I think you need to keep the vision singular for these annual planning meetings. I've been to so many of these annual planning meetings where the agenda is packed. And when you try to accomplish too much, I think nothing really gets accomplished. So if you keep the vision and the theme singular and keep hammering that in with the team, you'll make a bigger impact.
Welcome to the Magnificent Marketing Podcast, where we interview the top marketing experts in the world and keep you up to date on all the changes and best practices to help you grow your business and stay on the cutting edge. Welcome to the show. Hello, everyone. I'm here today again with Andrew Davis, and Andrew is a best-selling author and internationally acclaimed keynote speaker. Before building and selling a thriving digital marketing agency, Andrew produced for NBC's Today Show, worked for the Muppets in New York, and wrote for Charles Kuralt. He's appeared in the New York Times, Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, and on NBC and the BBC. Davis has crafted documentary films and award-winning content for tiny startups and Fortune 500 brands. Recognized as one of industry's jaw-dropping marketing speakers, Andrew is a mainstay on global marketing influencer lists. Wherever he goes, Andrew puts his infectious enthusiasm and magnetic speaking style to good use, teaching business leaders how to grow their business, transform their cities, and leave their legacy. And today, we are going to be talking about annual planning for marketers. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me back. This is always fun. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's more fun for me. Like when they say your infectious style, it's absolutely true, and everyone will find out in 2 seconds if they don't know already. So, I'm expecting that enthusiasm to burst.
I think so.
Let's. But I have no doubt it will. So as we dig in here, obviously, annual planning for marketers sounds like logical, sounds like something needs to do. But I would like for you to give your opinion on why it's so important to have these annual planning meetings.
I think annual planning meetings for marketing or for anyone else, to be totally honest, are really helpful to get people refocused on exactly what you're trying to accomplish this year. Because it's really easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day slog of, generating leads and creating content and, getting that last quarter campaign all sorted out and executed. And it's pretty easy to get stuck in the weeds and forget about exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And it goes a long way to kind of re-inspiring and reinvigorating your team so that they are really re-enthused and ready to kind of dive in at a higher level and solve the real problem.
No, I hear you, and I can't agree more. You hear oftentimes people have these meetings off sites, they get away.
Yeah.
Because you got to re-energize yourself, you got to refocus, because you're right. You just get on the day-to-day, you sometimes just start getting off a little bit off path, and yeah, you got to refocus at least once a year. So on that note, when should people have these meetings? Is it logical? Do you have them like at the beginning of the year? Do you have them in November, December? What do you, or is it?
To be honest, I like the idea of doing them around the beginning of the year. Traditionally it's a time where people are setting in New Year's resolutions. They're really rethinking what are they doing with their lives. This is a time for kind of reflection and refocusing and then redefining where you're going. And, on a personal level, that's important. But I think also professionally, when you're in a business, that it's a great time to do this on both levels, because I think they collide a lot. I think we forget that the teams that work with us, the people that, have been slaving away all year on the tasks that we've, put in front of them, are rethinking these things themselves. And it's nice for them to be reminded that your brand, your company stands for something bigger, that you want to really reinvest in the people that have made you successful so far, and that you have a vision for their success that's greater than just the things they're doing every day. So for me, I think that the end of the year or very early in the beginning of the year is a great time to do this. People are in a reflective mode, and it's a great time to rethink where you're going.
That makes sense. I wasn't sure what you were going to say. I assumed you were going to say November, December, January, right? But I wasn't sure. But yeah, it makes sense to do it maybe after the year, because you're right. Towards the end of the year, people are tying stuff up. But then more than that, you make a good point that just in general, people are in this mindset, for themselves, for everything. So it's natural to think that it would apply to business too. So, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, who should be involved? And I'd like for you to talk about that in your experience as, when you were growing your company, you probably started at one, right, yourself
Yeah,
before you.
yeah, exactly.
So from there, so you lived through a small, so you can speak to that.
Yeah,
But then you've also worked with the really large agencies as well.
yeah.
So I'd like for you to give your take on both ends of the spectrum. For smaller companies, who should be involved in these, and for larger companies, who should be involved?
Yeah, I think for the smaller companies, it's really easy because I think the answer is pretty much everyone. Um, I think
Yeah.
excluding people when you're really small is really hard for the rest of the team. And I've actually been a facilitator or a speaker at some small company events, that are held offsite that really do a great job of literally shutting down the company for 1 or 2 days. They don't have customer support available. They have an emergency number if someone needs to get in touch with them. But they're very good about including everyone in these meetings. Because when you're small and trying to grow, having everybody feel like they're a part of the trajectory is really important. When you're big, I think, and we're talking really big, I think you need to really just make sure that your entire team is there. And usually that also requires that the head of your team, the boss of the team is very intimately involved and is there for every one of the sessions that you're going to do in your planning. But it also requires that the boss above that boss, whether it's the VP or the director or the CEO or the CFO, be part of the event. Sometimes that's at the beginning, or they come for lunch, but they need to be there and not just be a figurehead, actually attend and spend some real quality time with the team so that they know this is endorsed by the senior management. They want to be part of it. They want to see what's going on. And that's a really important part.
Yeah.
I think keeping the meeting small makes it the most useful, I think.
But you make a great point. I mean, how often do we always hear, there's entire panels and talks in these big marketing conferences simply about getting C-level buy-in, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have to worry about getting C-level buy-in if they feel like they're part of the decision, I'd assume.
Absolutely, yeah. And you want them to be there. I think it's been the most helpful when they're there at the beginning and there at the end, especially if there's an output for the meeting. So let's say you're going to actually do some real planning in the meeting. You guys are, as a team, are going to rethink your marketing strategy or come up with a new approach this year or focus on a new niche target market. It's important that they be aware you're going to do that. The executive level team is going to be aware you're doing that and be there at the end for some sort of pitch. Like you want them to hear the output of that meeting. Because it goes a long way to making sure that you've tied it up with a real bow at the end, instead of like, oh, we'll run back that by the C-level executives at the next board meeting, which is 3 months from now, and you quickly lose steam. So it's really important for these kinds of meetings that people walk out of it saying, wow, this is great. We're really moving forward in a productive manner, and we're not waiting around for stuff.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, and you make a great point. I love what you just said, having because I think the biggest part of having them involved would be their time commitments. They're in their positions, and they're very busy, and they have other tasks that they're involved with. But if you have them there at the beginning and then the very end, I think that would be welcomed by everybody, right?
Yeah, of course.
They get to speak more freely without them there the entire time.
That's right, yeah.
And but they're there at the beginning, so they feel like, okay, I get it. And then at the end, and then they sign off, and now you're signed off, and you basically gotcha.
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense.
You bring up a great point. I think a lot of team members are kind of intimidated by those kinds of executives in the room. And if they are there the whole time, I don't think you get the most out of your team. People are a little more reserved. They're not. They have a great idea, but they're not sure it would be heard or listened to by the executive. They kind of hold the idea back. So yeah, I think you have to be really cognizant of the kind of aura they kind of exude in these meetings, and you don't want that to be a distraction. So just limiting it, but being very clear about why they are there and why they're there at that time is very important. And the other thing is, if you're going to pitch something at the end of your annual planning meeting, which is always a great thing to do, by the way, pitch something to the executives or to the CEO or to somebody that's not in the whole meeting to get their buy-in or get their feedback. It's a great way to end a meeting, but it's also a great way to be very clear about the role the person is going to play. And it's also important that they understand what kind of feedback you want before they show up. And actually, Carla Johnson, who I think you know Carla Johnson, right? She's really, really smart. And she has a great way of inviting executives to give feedback in very short snippets. And she basically says, you know, if you're going to give feedback at the end of this pitch session, all I want you to do is to first tell us what you like and try to think of 3 things about what you liked about the pitch. And then any criticism you have, I want you to phrase starting with what I wish.
Gotcha.
And all of a sudden,
how'd she come up with that? That's brilliant. Because you get everything in a positive mindset.
Exactly.
And then what I wish. Well, tell me the psychology behind that.
I think that what I wish the psychology invites. It's not shutting you down. Like it doesn't have X, Y, and Z. Instead, it's inviting you to include some other new ideas that the executive maybe imagines you haven't thought of or is hoping were included, and it gives that it's kind of a soft way to give criticism in a really positive kind of perspective, so that you're excited about considering the options the next time you pitch it or with the revision of the idea. Carla's really big on trying to encourage people to realize that no idea is ever completely shot down. And I think the reason she came up with this, this kind of structure, like what I like and what I wish, was that it makes it feel like the idea isn't dead, but they wish there was more to it, and it gives you an opportunity to try again.
And it gives the opportunity for the C-level people to insert their opinion,
Right?
And it probably gives them a nice way to do it, because they might, not everybody has the best way of doing everything.
I've been in those meetings where you're like, oh, we worked 2 days on this, and
and they hate it, and they're discouraged, and they didn't mean that. They didn't mean that. They just were saying something else, but they said it in the wrong way.
That's right.
No.
It's important also that if you're going to do this kind of button-end C-level executive approach, especially in a bigger team, that you at the end of the podcast, at the end of the meeting, after you've done the pitch and you've heard the C-level executive give the feedback, that you don't let the meeting end with that feedback. That you thank the CEO, they leave the room, and you have at least 15 or 20 minutes again with your team to say, hey guys, we've done a great job. What he wishes was in here are all things we considered or didn't consider, and let's revise this idea just a little bit and talk about the next steps we should take to make sure that this doesn't die after this meeting ends. Even if it goes badly, that's a really good thing to do. And if it goes well, that last 15 minutes is just like a party, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, great advice. I mean, sometimes the simplest, big outcomes can be the simplest solutions, and people might be going through this all the way, going through these, and they're constantly discouraged. And then it's like, well, just do this, that just do this one thing, or these 2 things, bring them at the beginning and the end, and then this is how you're going to structure their feedback. Those 2 things could make massive differences. So awesome. Now let's get into the structure of these meetings. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how these should be set up. Where do you start? What should be discussed next, and so forth.
So I think so. Let's start with some basics. I think that every annual planning meeting should include some external inspiration, and by that I don't mean like hire a speaker like Andrew. It's not at all.
Or you do.
You do. That's nice. But look, you don't need it. You really don't need it. What you do need to do, especially as an executive, is invite your team to do some real soul searching. And I suggest the best thing to do actually is to assign a book. Invite them to all read a book that you think would have an impact on the business or their career or the industry. It can be any kind of book. Even it could be, look, I just read a book called How to Get Rich in Rising Asia, which is a really well-written, beautifully written book that helps you. That isn't meant this way, I don't think, but if I had a team, I'd ask them to read it. Or if I had a sales team, I just read Never Split the Difference. And by the way, I just had my annual meeting with my little team. I think it was yesterday. And I loved Never Split the Difference. So, it's a book that I should have probably shared with my sales team before we had our meeting. I didn't, but that's exactly the idea that you want, is to get your team really feeling like they're investing in themselves and give them some time to digest it. So don't, if your planning meeting is on Wednesday, don't say, hey, by the way, I need you to read this book and we're going to do a book club on Wednesday and it's only Monday. Like, you need to really do some planning and give them something to read a month or 2 months ahead and say that you expect everyone to have read it when you come to the meeting. And I think this makes a big difference, especially if it has to do with your theme. And that's the second thing. I think you need to keep the vision singular for these annual planning meetings. I've been to so many of these annual planning meetings where the agenda is packed with like 50 different things that they want to cover because the team's only in town for 2 full days, and they've got evening activities and breakfast activities and yoga in the morning and lunch at the, like, it gets packed fast. And when you try to accomplish too much, I think nothing really gets accomplished. So if you keep the vision and the theme singular and keep hammering that in with the team, you'll make a bigger impact. And the reason I bring those two things up together is if they have something to do with each other, if they're both, if the book and the theme, are really work in a symbiotic way, you're going to make a much bigger impact on your team. They're going to be thinking very differently about everything you talk about that day if you're constantly harping on those things. So I think you should start with the theme. If you're the executive, you should start with the theme. You should start with the book that would support that theme, which means you need to spend some time reading those books yourself. And then I think next, you really want to think about the one thing that would have the biggest impact on the business or your division over the next year. What would that one thing be? If you accomplished it, what would it be? And that then starts to become the practical output of these 3 pieces that you're going to spend the entire annual planning meeting really focusing on.
If you can, give me some examples of the one thing that you have seen people focus on, companies.
Yeah, so, well, first let me let me tell you about the things that people don't don't consider as the one thing. So I think don't use things that are too specific and too small. Like, setting objectives and goals are great, but if you say, hey, our goal for next year is to increase the number of leads we get by 25%, it makes the meeting like a tactical output of those kinds of one things. Does that make sense? So instead, if you pick much higher and more ambitious ideas that are in keeping with your theme. Here, I'll use examples from my book. Let's keep it simple, right? But if you assign brandscaping as the book for your team to read, the book is all about finding partnerships that have access to an audience you don't already have access to. The theme of the meeting might be, partnerships as a way to grow. That might be, it's not the most eloquent one, but there you go. And then the one thing might be that our team finds 3 partnerships over the next year that make a significant contribution to revenue. And those kinds of ideas will go a lot further to making a big impact.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Like, those other ones are almost like platitudes, almost. Grow by 10%, 20%.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah, thanks. I think the difference is it requires critical thinking. It requires the team to think creatively, and that's what these annual meetings should be best for, really having some fun to get out of your comfort zone and stretch the team a little. You're not going to spend 100% of your time on this, but if you can really make a concerted effort to focus the team's theme for the year, that's really great.
No, I hear you. I'm hearing you loud and clear, and I saw you say this one time. You said the best leaders connect the dots between your first 3 items, your clear focus, setting the theme, inspiring them with their everyday activities.
Yeah.
How would one be one of these best leaders?
Yeah. So I mean, if we just continue that theme, the output for this is that you really want people thinking about this new concept, the new theme for the year, more often than just the annual planning meeting and your weekly check-ins. You want it to start to be ingrained in the way they're, actually conducting business, which means you really need to start, inviting them to suggest partnerships. That could be anything from starting a Slack channel where you, the leader, are the person who's asking, what partnerships have you pursued today, or what partnership did you notice might be good for our brand? Anybody have some ideas? Share a link. Those kinds of things really keep this as part of the vernacular of the team and becomes part of their everyday activities. And at the end of your annual planning meeting, you really need to make sure that everybody understands what's expected of them to make sure that this becomes a reality instead of just a feel-good annual planning meeting.
Sure. And on that note, making sure, I guess it's, measurement and tracking and whatnot. How, I don't know if you want to give an overview kind of answer on this, or if you want to give some specific, but, making sure, everyone's, efficient and managing everything as the year progresses. What do you have to say, in and around that to make sure everyone continues to stay aligned?
I don't, for me, I think, I've always been told, in fact, a really great CEO that I was a client of ours and a friend of ours, named Jim Demetrius. He's like a turnaround CEO. He's one of those guys that's brought into, a struggling company, and essentially his job is over the course of the next few years, turn it into something really valuable. And he told me that, 99% of a CEO's job is to be a great cheerleader. And the other 1% is business. And I think that's so true for any leader. If you can really focus on, encouraging the right kind of behavior from the team you've got on a regular basis, and really thinking about yourself as a cheerleader rather than, a taskmaster or, a project planner or a measuring expert, I think you'll find yourself really encouraging the best out of your team. And that'll go a long way, I think, to measuring what you need to have measured, but also really encouraging the behavior you want. So I don't have any rules for like how often should you check in on this stuff, but if you're doing this right, the theme should be something you're touching on with every person all the time in the right kind of way, so that they really are, feel like it's something they want to be part of instead of another chore on their list.
Gotcha. And I assume, correctly documenting everything ahead of time really helps out with that, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
How do you, is there any, is this as simple as, you get it and everybody has a memo or whatever, or, I'm trying to think through that, like something that's easily referenced that isn't so bogged down. Is it as simple as like, all right, we got down to it, here's our goal, and then obviously everybody breaks down their rules of engagement for the plan, and everybody gets going. But is there like a master document that everybody references or looks at?
I think those kinds of things help. So there's a brand that used to be a client of ours at Tipping Point called Hylands, Hylands, and they're a massive kind of homeopathic remedy manufacturer, and they sell. You can find their products like at CVS and stuff, right? And they're a pretty big company, and they've really taken this kind of annual planning to advice and insight to heart. So every year they have an annual planning meeting, just like we're talking about. They set up a theme. They focus squarely on making sure that they're all focused on this one big idea for the entire year. And one team, usually the team that stands to gain the most, or the team that has to be involved the most. Let's say their theme was, coming up with some new products. Well, that means that the product innovation team is going to be at the core of that. But the goal is that the entire company help with this process. And they put the product, in this example, they put the product innovation team in charge of the documentation, the assignment, the measuring, the budgeting, all of that stuff kind of fits in their world. And so I think it's best if you really think of it the same way for your team. Think about one person or two people that really kind of can own those pieces of the puzzle and make sure that they're helping the rest of the team stay aligned and move forward in an organized manner.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
that just makes complete logical sense. Now, you touched on this. You just mentioned it, so I'm going to bring it up, and this is kind of maybe a hard one, but budgeting. Everyone wants
Yeah.
you to do more with less, and I'm sure you've seen marketers try to get over this hurdle with CEOs, owners, but what, like, budgeting just seems so hard. It almost
Well,
feels like you just like say, what do I have to work with, or
yeah.
versus what it's going to cost to achieve results, but you're not really sure what kind of results it's going to take to do. It
Yeah.
just has always been hard for me to grasp this.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, David, I think like, I honestly think for annual planning meetings specifically, staying away from the budgeting, uh, you know, task itself is really actually kind of important because I think it all of a sudden um, like hacks away at the creative juices you're really trying to get flowing, no matter what the theme is for the year, because people are constantly thinking, how much is this going to cost? Or they're thinking, I don't have time to do one other thing in addition to this thing. So here's how I think you really solve that problem. We didn't really talk about it, but if you, at the beginning of your meeting, it is really important to think about and celebrate the successes you've had in the past year, what's worked and what hasn't. I don't mean dwell on it, but more importantly, it's with a real focus on what you're going to stop doing. Because in the marketing world specifically, we're really good at adding new ideas, and everything is additive. It's like
Yeah,
we've got
I'm guilty
hey,
of that.
this year, yeah, like this year let's do Snapchat, and this year we're also going to do video, and that's our theme. We're going to tell stories through video. Okay, great, but this is all fine and good. But if you're still doing the 19 other things and the 19 other themes
Such a good
for the
point.
years, so I think the goal is before you go into the meeting, if you're an executive, you need to know what we're going to stop doing. And let's say your email newsletter sucks and you haven't seen any results really for 5 years. Well, then you need to walk into that meeting and say, guys, we've had some great successes this year, X, Y, and Z. But here's the deal. We are going to stop doing email newsletters. And with that time and energy that we used to put into the email newsletters, we are going to focus on this theme. And our theme for the year is this. And that immediately releases the pressure in the room of thinking this entire annual planning meeting is going to come up with a bunch of things that are in addition to the crap we're already doing. So you've
That
got
is
to
such
stop
a good
doing
point. I am making a note right now
stuff.
for talk to the CEO about what to stop.
Yeah, you've got to
Because
do it.
and I'm guilty of it, but I'm getting a little
Everybody
bit
is.
better. It's hard to pull away, but because you do need to have these open conversations because as a either manager or business owner or head of a department, you have good ideas and you put them out and they get going and then you forget about them.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, if you have an engaged company who wants to do their best, everybody in the employee wants to do their best, they're going to just try to pile it on, and it might not make sense. And I've seen a couple of things. For us, one was SlideShare.
Yeah.
It just, I mean, it was, wasn't getting that much movement. And then I finally asked, I go, well, how long does it take to put each one of these together from one of our blog posts? He said 1 to 2 hours. I'm like, what?
You're like, there you
I
go.
was like, holy shit, really? I'm sorry. Nix that. I mean, 1 to 2 hours time. That's what, like 4 to 8, 16, 20 hours a month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. I'm sorry. Stop that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's lots of others. And you just telling me this makes a lot of sense. And things change. Like Snapchat, for instance,
Exactly.
people are migrating to Instagram because Instagram has their features, and Snapchat does not have all of Instagram's features of the targeting. I'm not saying no to Snapchat if you have that 15 to 23
exactly.
market, but that's an example. So
yeah, and I think if you don't know what to stop, if you're an executive that either has a big team or is really good at handing things off and just letting it run, these are all great assets. But if you're not sure what to stop, one of the great things to do before your annual planning meeting is schedule a meeting with your team to say, guys, over the next week or two, I want you to, as you're doing your work, think of things that you think are not producing the results we should expect, that are a waste of your time, that you don't think are good enough or high enough quality for the people that we serve. And I want you to bring those to my attention. Because next year we are going to stop doing the stuff that doesn't matter so we can actually invest in the things that do. And I've never met an employee who doesn't want to tell you what we should stop doing. I mean, honestly.
And
what should we stop doing? They'll tell you.
And it's not laziness.
No,
it's not laziness.
Not because they don't want to
No,
do
not
it.
at all. Not at all. They just have
Most
other stuff
times
they
it's like,
think they should be doing.
and you know what it does? It sparks a lot of new good ideas. Because if somebody walks in and says, "Hey, look, Dave, I think we should stop doing these LinkedIn things," if your question as an executive is always, "Hey, man, that sounds great. Is there something we could do that would produce better results?" I guarantee you, they've already thought of that answer. Because one of the things they complain about with their peers is, "Man, I hate doing these LinkedIn, slide share posts. Like, there's such a huge waste of my time. If we just didn't do this and I spent my time doing that, we could do so." They'll say, "Oh, I'm glad you asked. If we did that, we'd be much more successful." And all of a sudden, you have them working for you, really solving problems that you didn't even know existed.
That's so profound and so true. Again, simplest things, big
Simplest
results.
things, man. You got to stop doing stuff.
Yeah.
No,
for real. I promise you 1,000,000%. And my CEO, I think he's listening in on this. I'm going to walk in there after this meeting.
He's going to say, "Hey guys, I was wondering if you had anything you think we should stop doing."
Yeah, no, for real though. That's so smart, and I am 100% guilty of that. All right, awesome. Let's move on to as things get rolling and you have some successes, hitting milestones. In your experience and in your advice, should bonus programs be tied to this? If so, should they be monthly, quarterly, yearly? What do you have to say there?
Oh man, I think, well, first of all, I'm a big proponent of these kinds of rewards. Sharing in the success of your team is really awesome, right? But I think, first of all, they have to be really, really clear. I personally have made mistakes where we've kind of set up bonus programs that aren't very clear. And I do think they need to be frequent enough that they make an impact, but not.
Describe frequent. I mean,
like monthly is awesome, right? Like, hey, you did a great job this month. You've hit your bonus. Here's some cash. That's awesome, right?
Yeah,
or here's
that might be a little
vacation days. Yearly, I think, is too infrequent, especially if the amount isn't a huge amount. So think of the time frame for bonuses as relative to the size of the bonus. If you're going to give someone 3 times their salary at the end of the year, that's a good bonus milestone, and you don't need to do anything else. But if you're going to give people $100 at the end of the year for hitting their milestone, that is not going to work. I'd rather you give them the $100 after a week of success. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
But let me just say this about about kind of rewards programs in general. I've actually found, it's been my experience anyway, especially running small creative companies, that bonus programs that are really clear work, but they don't work as well as surprise bonuses. Now, that means if somebody walks in one day and has a check on their desk for $100 that they didn't expect, that has a much bigger impact on their perception of the reward than if they expected the $100 and worked really hard to get it. So I think for most creative teams, as a leader, you don't need to, everybody should set the milestones. Yes, you need goals. I understand all that, and you should have them. But not attaching them to bonuses can actually work to your advantage as long as you're measuring those milestones yourself. And when they hit them, or they get really close, or they, far surpass them, the minute they do it, you give them a reward for it. It could be headphones. It doesn't have to be cash. But these surprises mean more, and I think they actually build greater loyalty and have a higher perception of reward than the cash itself.
I like what you're saying there, because my plan is, I've talked it over with my partner, and what I plan on doing starting this year, we started, I guess, a month ago, bonus. So, but that's part of the structure. It's going to be twice a year, like profit sharing. You take a third that goes to the company, a third, that goes to CEOs, but again, that's the overhead and all that, and then a third will be split up amongst the team. And so, but they kind of know that's coming. So but then I just thought about it. Because I was like, is it twice, 3, 4 times a year? I just wasn't sure. I wasn't going to do monthly because that's just too much to keep up with. But like 2, 3, 4 times, that I was maybe 2, just because of the there's money coming in and out, a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of the so, there's fluctuations, big ones sometimes, like at the end of the year,
Yeah, same.
all out. But I love what you're saying, and I'm going to do that. Yeah, we just need to do little intermittent, little stuff. But,
Yeah.
but it's the
It's
surprises is,
the
they were surprised
surprises.
about this last one, and man, did I not get a wonderful response.
Yeah,
This made me feel so good. I even teared up and cried.
I'm
I was
telling you.
so happy to
Yeah,
see them happy.
I think it's really about the surprise instead of the expectation. Because no matter what, my honest my honest opinion of bonuses that are expected is that they never there's a disproportionate response between me, the person giving the bonus, like I'm expecting them to be overjoyed, and they're just expecting it. And so it's
Yeah.
like, hey, thanks. I know I
All
hit my
right.
bonus. I've been watching my numbers or watching the goal, and it's almost like I expected this last week. Like, why are you a week late? You know what I mean? And
No,
because they're
exactly. And I think
ungrateful.
I'm going to incorporate a blend of that.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna softly say we're going to do, and of course they might expect something at the end of the year, but
yeah,
that's most everybody in the world, But I would say I'm going to randomly do this, and they won't know. I won't be saying if we're hitting, no, yeah, no. I'm gonna merge me and my partner will know it's structured, but it'll appear random.
There's
So
a,
yeah.
let me just bring up one other thing about bonuses. Instead of actually giving cash or a prize or whatever for hitting their milestones, one of the things you should think about at annual planning time is inviting your team to tell you what kind of insights or advice or new learning that they wish they had, and what even invite them to bring events that they'd like to go to or
Huh.
attend. Um,
That's funny.
because
We did do that.
yeah, because if you do that, that can and you let's say you have a budget, a small percentage in that overhead allotted to professional development,
Mhm.
surprising your team or a member of your team who's doing a great job or had to work late all week for a client, with a 1 day pass to a marketing event in your local market, and getting the day off to do some professional development is just as valuable and just as surprising, but also mutually beneficial. I mean, they want to learn, and you're investing in their future, which is really important. So,
Yeah.
I think if you really want to get the most out of your team, really understanding where they think their blind spots are, not by asking them, because no team member wants to say, well, I'm not really good at Google Analytics, but I do the reports every week. It's really difficult, right? But if somebody says, I'd love to go to, the search engine optimization meeting, and, I want to do a half day, they have a half day thing focused on Google Analytics with Andy Crestodina, and that's, they're essentially telling you their blind spot without having to tell it to you, and you get to then, reward them with these kinds of experiences. Experiences are much more valuable than money or even prizes and surprises when it comes to, I think, professional development. So,
That's so funny you bring that up. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and maybe a tip for my end here. What we're gonna do with that is we're gonna have each of them pick a conference that they want to go to, and then they get to pick one of their team members to go. So each of them will go to two
oh, how
conferences
fun!
because I hate going to conferences alone.
Do you?
I mean, I do and I don't. I'm glad I did go to the content marketing conference alone for like
Yeah.
7 years, and I was forced to get out of my comfort zone and meet people and stuff like that. So that it resulted in meeting people like you and bunches of others. So that worked out. But man,
No,
you go to those parties, those opening parties, and you kind of wander around, and it's just a little uncomfortable.
Oh,
but if you're just with one person, and like this year, I took my partner, and I will say everything was more comfortable for me, and then we actually ended up meeting even more people.
It's
Because,
so true.
So that's how I'm gonna do. I'm gonna let them because I don't want them to feel that way. I don't like anybody feeling uncomfortable. So I want them to make this be a 1,000,000% positive experience.
So do you limit it to their kind of their niche? Like you
Yeah.
say, hey, if you're in
Yeah.
marketing, so this
Ish. It's going to be
okay.
somewhere around, like, my guy who heads up our social media effort, mainly we kind of streamline the efforts when we do social ads for people, be it content distribution or like straight e-commerce.
Yeah.
Like we have our guy who sets up the campaigns. He's really super crazy versed with the targeting and setting up all, and then he works with the COO to like the strategy behind that. But then we have he's creative, but we have somebody who's more creative, right? And then we have an analysis on the back end who saves him time having to relook at just present him with the information so then he can make adjustments, right?
Yeah.
So for him, I want him to go to some social media marketing world or something like that. And I want my graphics person to go to some sort of graphics contest or interactive conference. And my social media manager, I might want to go to social media marketing world. My targeting guy might want to go to Inbound or somewhere else. I don't know. But there's going to be a crossover, because somebody's going to go with them and learn other stuff. He's going to go with somebody else.
Yeah, one of the most valuable experiences I've ever had actually is the lesson I got from it was always like challenge yourself by going to events that make you really uncomfortable. And when we were at Tipping Point, we ended up going to Penny Arcade. Have you ever heard of this?
Barely. Why does that ring a bell?
Well, Penny Arcade, it's like a video game conference. It's kind of like Comic-Con, but for video games.
I'd like to go to that.
It's awesome, actually. And we went because the client asked us to go, and so we didn't know what to expect, but I learned so much about marketing, just in general, at that event that had nothing to do with marketing.
That's interesting.
And I think one of the great things about events is, especially if you invite them to come back, if somebody in your team, they do the SEO or they do, social ad buying, whatever, but they're really into 3D printing, if they go to a 3D printing event, I guarantee they'll come back with insights or advice.
No, you're right.
And so don't, I just want everybody that's listening to realize that professional development and rewarding your team with some time away from the office, but that's productive, and really invest in their future is always valuable, even if it has nothing to do with their job.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I hear you. And it was kind of a dual reason. I love having redundancy of education in our company.
Yeah, no, you can't do that when you're sending two team members, which I think is awesome, by the way, because you can't be like, hey, I know you're not into Penny Arcade, but Jeff is going to Penny Arcade, and you're going to go with him.
Yeah.
That's not going to fly.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and it makes a lot of sense. No, I hear you. So I don't know. I'm happy to hear that some of where our minds at.
You guys are all on the right page. Yeah, it's awesome.
Where you're at. Yeah, and man, investing in your team, it makes your life so much easier.
So much easier.
So much easier. And that's kind of an epiphany I had because, the more you learn, the less smart you feel. You start,
and the blind spots. Yeah.
Yeah, and who do you learn from?
Smart
people, right?
Yeah, right?
So then you start seeing all these smart people, like super smart people, and the Andy Cristodanas of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And you, and Michael Brenner, and Mark Sheridan, and Joe Belizzi, and all of them, and everybody. And you just start like comparing yourself to them, and then you just get humbled. And then you start going through a lack of confidence. It's just like the natural progression of everybody. and I've gone through it. And then recently I come through an epiphany, and when I say this out loud, I'm like, okay, let me preface this by saying, I'm not comparing myself to these people. I was like, but the Richard Bransons and the Steve Jobs of the world, they didn't know shit about lots of shit.
Yeah, right.
Like Steve Jobs didn't know anything about his techie development stuff. He doesn't have that brain set. He just was pushed. He was the idea guy, and he pushed everybody. So, what they did is they just built massive, amazing teams, and then you build them up, and then all of a sudden you do what you're good at, which is running a company and ideating and doing that kind of stuff. So I kind of came into some peace lately, and like, okay, because I struggle with certain things. Like I struggle with digging into like certain platforms and really learning them inside and out. That's all my forte. Whenever I opened up, any sort of thing that I got to put together from IKEA, I start sweating and I start complaining, and my wife ends up doing it, because she's the kind of the more macho of the household person. And it's all right. We all have our roles in life. So, but I just can't. It kills me. But then like bigger picture, bigger stuff, putting these podcasts together, I love it. And so it's okay. So, but the best point is like grow your team. It makes your life easier, re-energizes them. They get smarter, and then as long as you're not just the whole "I did it" attitude, which you should never have, then you're golden, you know, because you're getting everybody's helping out.
I'm
So
with you, man.
yeah. It's just grow them, and I find peace in just doing that, and then they'll carry me.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I want to circle back a little bit. Kind of a question that kind of popped in my head here at the beginning of the meetings, because you mentioned let's review what wasn't working and stuff like that to take off the plate.
Yeah.
What about, like, you know, kind of digging into some of the weeds here, because I know you've kept this really high.
Yeah.
But what about reviewing past procedures and your SOPs that you've developed, because you got to have those if you're going to scale and keep people organized. Is that done at this time, or is that left for another time?
I think I think the more strategic you make an annual planning meeting, the more you'll get out of it. The more and more, like, think of it as a pyramid, maybe an upside down pyramid, I guess. Keep the annual planning meeting broad and focused on this one theme and idea, and thinking about creative ways to be successful with this one big idea. What can we change? How can we change? Those are all great questions. But then getting down to the actual SOPs or the processes or the old procedures, I think those are things that should come out of this meeting. Like, hey, you know, if we do this, we are going to have to address our sales process at some point. You know, hey, let's put Dave in charge of that. Dave, would you be willing to take that on?
Gotcha.
Dave,
that's when those things get
done.
done.
But
website audits, content audits, all of those are details that will get done throughout the week, month.
You can either do them, some of these things you can do before. Like, if you're the leader and you say, hey guys, like, I think our website sucks. One of the things we want to do, and the theme for next year is going to be repositioning our brand, right? That might be a good theme. And the website's going to be one of it. And you might ask the team to, like, do a quick audit and give you the results before you go into the meeting. And then you have some things you can discuss, but after the meeting, you're going to really dive into the nitty gritty.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay, that's another question I wasn't sure about, and I get it. I see where you're going with this, and I think the overall theme is by doing less, you're going to get a lot more done, and you're not necessarily doing less. You are just focusing in a different way, because if you start focusing on, you get your head in the weeds, which is what you're getting yourself out of.
Exactly.
With this meeting, you will go back into those weeds, from January through December. You will at some point have to do some of the nitty gritty and do some of the tasks, and those can be assigned in general. Hey, let's review. What we want to do is improve our overall sales numbers. Okay, here are some of the things that we're going to need to look at. Hey, Joe, why don't you look at blah blah blah? Gotcha.
I don't think it's like, here's the difference. If this ends up feeling like it could be any other meeting, like, hey, like even just an hour of it. If you took 1 hour out of your annual planning meeting and it starts to feel like your last week's sales meeting, you have missed the point of the annual planning meeting entirely. This meeting has to feel different. It has to be elevated. It has to really get people thinking strategically and out of the weeds. And if people start getting in the weeds, it's your role as the executive to kind of be like, hey guys, I understand these are great things that we do need to consider, like the processes, or do a web content audit. We're not going to do those now. Let's keep moving, and we're going to come back to these things in the regular course of business, because I want you to keep thinking big. We've had great ideas already. Your job, again, is to be the cheerleader and make sure everybody is thinking about big things in the annual planning meeting, not the nitty-gritty. And that's one of the hardest parts of leading one of these.
I hear you, man. I think you made yourself loud and clear. You've given me some absolute takeaways right now that I think I'm probably going to save our company 100 hours this year. For real, though.
That's so nice.
For real, they add up. So I'm going to go in there right away. I already saw one thing, and you know how hard it was for me to check that off my task list, because I follow up randomly on certain things. Quarterly follow-ups, like, hey, is this still getting done? Just until I feel comfortable with stuff. And
of course,
and that one came up again, and I pushed it back like 8 months twice already. And I was like looking at it, and I remember just not getting a lot of movement. He told me, and I just stared at it, and I like really stared at this note for like a minute. Yeah. And I was just like, check off. Yeah. I get it, because if I don't see it again, I won't think about it again.
I know, right?
So but it was hard. It was hard, to let go. But I was like, God, we have so much other shit going on. you know.
Of course.
So yeah. So anyways, yeah, great pointers, Andrew.
Thanks,
Do you have
man.
any other good resources, maybe yourself, where you've talked about this more, worksheets, anything like that you can point people to or send me that I can include in the blog?
You know, let me, yes, I probably do. So check the blog. That's the answer to the podcast listeners. But I'll definitely find some. I did a video, I think, at one point on how to put together a great annual planning meeting. So let me see if I can find that. And
Okay.
I'll send that your way that you can include. You know, otherwise, like I just started a YouTube series. My commitment for this year, 2018, is to
There you
do
go.
videos. Yeah. I'm really focused on a big idea called the loyalty loop, which is all about how brilliant brands create these micro moments that deliver massive results. So I started a kind of vlog meets business advice series that just debuted this January. So check that out on YouTube.
Just Andrew Davis. Go to YouTube.
Yeah,
Andrew
just
Davis.
Andrew Davis. I don't. Yeah, I mean, just search Andrew Davis Loyalty Loop on YouTube. I hope you'll find it. If not, you can always find me on Twitter. I'm at Drew Davis here, and you can say, "Dude, I can't find your videos," and you'll find them there. But yeah, those are the best two ways to get in touch with me, anyway.
Okay, awesome. All right, Andrew. Hey, this was a lot of fun as always. You didn't let me down on your enthusiasm as expected, and really enjoyed it. And until next time.
Thanks. Yeah, this has been fun. Have a great afternoon, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye. All right, Andrew. That's fun, man.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. You answered a lot of questions for me. You know, I'm getting to this point where we're having to start thinking about shit like this, and all that.
Good.
You know, we're getting there. We're getting there. All right, buddy. Hey, well, yeah, and on that town thing, I'll keep you updated. I'm been kind of in touch with him. I kind of not with him in general, but he got to me through that other that other town that was doing that thing for the vets, and they're just a defunct town, you know, bored, they don't care and everything, so they've been dragging their feet. And when I did the proposal, I actually wanted to start charging more than I put in there, especially because I also wanted to include we're starting to build out a media outreach part of our company, you know, through this we're teaming up with a guy who actually developed and ran a news station here in Austin for 12 years. I just was like kind of random friends with him because he sat near me in UT football seats for 15 years.
Wow.
And I'd walk up and down the stairs, and for some reason, I'm with I sit next to, well, there's 16 of us. We're really lucky on our seats. We got these awesome seats. So I sit next to this guy who's on camera all the time. He wears a big sombrero. I guess that's might have like he might have said, I don't know. Bottom line is I just started saying hi and bye to him every time I went up and down the stairs, right, for like 15 years. And then Liz is like, hey, you know, he's like a really big deal and all this. I was like, I kind of know. I know his wife's a TV personality and stuff, but I don't know. You know, just kind of like, well, she's like, well, you need to talk to him. He's doing this and this and that. So I set up a coffee meeting with him like 3 months ago, and we've gone in on some proposals, and we've won a couple now. And so what he's going to do is we're going to build out an outreach department within our company to get, like, you know, because marketing, you know, things don't go viral unless you see a panda beating up a tiger or something, you know? I mean, not really anymore, you know? So you got to get the big wins for big opportunities. You got to get like traditional media involved, you know, and you got to get, you know, but you got to have all the digital stuff set up, obviously, to capture those big wins, you know, like, you know, retargeting and all your plans and your just overall general ongoing plan. So anyways, we're working with him to set that up. So I wanted to, for that, that's like perfectly tailored for that. Yeah. So I put an expiration date on that proposal with him because they've been dragging their feet so much. Oh, good. And and he's part of that. So I'm letting that finish. Yeah. And then I'm going to circle back around to him because he's equally as frustrated with those people. Yeah. As you can tell, the kind of personality he is. Yeah. Like, you guys are idiots. Why am I wasting my time? I'm giving you my time, my connections, my money for free. Yeah. So why do y'all suck so bad? Yeah. So anyways, I'm letting that, but then I'm gonna circle back around to him. I'm just letting this other thing go because you never know how. And I copied him on the email how people are gonna respond to me saying, I gotta put an expiration date on this. Yeah. Which is fair, right? I mean, that's of course. Right. I mean, that's sit there forever. Right. Okay. Good. Yeah. All right. Cool.
All right, man. I gotta run actually.
Okay.
But, I'm gonna go. I'm actually going to meet Carla Johnson right now, so I gotta hit the road. But I will. That's maybe why she's top of mind. But yeah, this has been awesome. Let's stay in touch. I'll talk to you in the next week or two.
Okay.
At least by email.
Okay.
All right, man.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
All right. Have a good one, buddy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.